Hello everyone, my name is Chris Titley and welcome to the FinTech Australia podcast. The FinTech Australia podcast takes listeners on a deep dive across the FinTech industry in Australia, focusing on the challenges, opportunities and big stories our community faces. Let's get to today's episode. And in today's podcast, we're chatting to Daniel Canizzaro, founder and CEO of Parpera, about Parpera's recent fact-finding mission to the UK and Europe, including Money 2020. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me. Great to be on the show.
Daniel, I'd like to sort of get a bit more of an understanding about what Parpera is, the history of the business, and sort of how it came about.
Yeah, so Parpera means fair wallet in Latin. It embodies our purpose, which is to make it easier for people to do business through providing them with a fair and transparent proposition. We exist to serve sole traders and micro business owners. We believe that if you can make it easier for people to do business, you can reduce the friction and the flow of capital, both human and financial, and you can have better outcomes for society. So that's the high-level purpose.
Perfect.
We enable that through providing a digital mobile-first business solution that gives you access to an underlying business account, MasterCard debit card, invoicing, payments capabilities through a partnership with Wise, and we allow you to also receive payment by card, set aside money for taxes, so you can stress less at tax time, and have just a everyday better understanding of how you're doing business and how you can improve.
There's been some big announcements in your firm recently, as you mentioned there, with that Wise and also the debit card, etc. How have you managed post those announcements in terms of the traction and also the people understanding about what you're doing and the market presence that you want to achieve?
Yeah, so Parpera is a business now that's just over 3.5 years old. So I founded Parpera back in April 2020. For some of you listeners on the show, they'll be aware of our journey. We initially equity crowdfunded for the business. We used that money we had over 350 different investors participate in that back on the Equitize platform. We used that money to build our initial proposition. The awareness from both the ecosystem perspective, but also from a business landscape perspective, is very different today than what it was 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, it was more of a question of, why do you need a mobile first proposition? Will people get value from it? And today, we had previously launched with a different partner. That partner had failed. We rebuilt over the last 12 months, and relaunching has been fantastic. We've had our old members return. We've had a flow of new members come through, and when I say members, that's businesses signing up to the platform.
Yep.
Our transaction activity. So in 2 weeks, we had more members than what we had in a month last time, and in 2 weeks and in 3 weeks, we've had a lot more transaction activity that we saw in the first 3 months. So all the right signs are there. It's still early days.
Brilliant, mate. That's excellent. I did follow your story for a long time, and obviously some roadblocks there, which you've now overcome with the new partnerships and the new products, etc. And it's great to see the customers come back and give you some more loyalty.
Thanks. And so it's all really promising. We see the conversation now at a macro level shifting as well in favor of supporting micro businesses. So there are 2.5 million businesses in Australia. In the last year alone, there was a 14% increase in micro businesses. The stats are in 5 years from now, or 5 to 10 years from now, 65% of our working population are going to be millennials and Gen Z. There aren't any propositions coming to market to serve the modern day business owner and the things that they're looking for. So we look to serve people around 3 key jobs to be done. We've spoken to thousands of business owners over the last 3 years. And the key 3 things they're looking for to run their business in terms of around financial management and business management are: help me receive money simply and quickly, help me understand and maintain my cash flow and tax obligations, and help me gain access to products and services and support that are tailored to my needs. And that's always been why we built Parpera and the underpinning problems we wanted to solve. And we've been solving them, and the feedback's been really positive.
Fantastic, mate. And recently you've just participated in the government-supported international FinTech program. How did you find out about the Austrade program?
Yeah, so Parpera was fortunate to be selected amongst the competitive process of 10 or so FinTechs that participated in the Austrade UK Money 2020 delegation. We went over to the UK in late May. We spent a week in London and Birmingham, meeting with government, corporate and financial services leaders. And we found out about it through FinTech Australia. This is a delegation that's run a couple of different times now to various parts of the world. There's a Singapore equivalent and also a US equivalent as well. We participated in the delegation because we saw a great opportunity to learn about what's happening in the UK, being one of the early markets where the whole fintech revolution, in my view, started, and I was lucky to live through it at the time. What I was really amazed about in going over there was just how much opportunity there still is, and how much opportunity there is for fintechs in Australia to build locally and export their capabilities globally.
Excellent. And during the period that you're over there, what sort of program did you do apart from obviously meeting local, investors or local fintechs, etc.? What were some of the activities you got up to?
Yeah, so the team at Austrade and FinTech Australia did an awesome job of pulling together a really coherent program. It covered a couple of different themes. One was around very clearly fundraising, introductions to investors. So we did a pitch event at Australia House at level 39 as well, one of the big fintech hubs in Canary Wharf. But we also explored partnerships as well with different partners, people that serve businesses. It was designed to cater to a different fintechs. So there were B2B fintechs such as ourselves, but there were also B2C fintechs that served. So we had Carter, for example, in terms of gift cards. We had Maneuver over there from a payments infrastructure perspective. So there's also enterprise as well. And what they did a really good job of was structuring the conversation in a way that was relevant to all of us, and gave us an opportunity to really look at identifying opportunities in the market as well. So we went out to Birmingham and met with the West Midlands Growth Company and understood a little bit more around the incentives that the UK is putting in place. So, for example, post-Brexit world in the UK, the government over there is looking at opportunities to incentivize and stimulate economic growth. The trip was also coincided with the launch of the Australia-UK Fair Trade Agreement, which is opening up the borders for business between the UK and also the flow of people. And so it was really well timed in terms of looking at what does that mean for us. And so in terms of the ability to share data across borders, the ability to provide financial services across borders, and to really support those macro trends of activity that are starting to unfold for us. And I wouldn't have known what they were if I didn't go on the trip. So to bring up Birmingham again, there's a huge incentive. There are huge incentives in place in the regions as part of the government's, the UK government's levelling up agenda, where they want to close the gap between, for example, London and the rest of the UK in terms of inequality and access to financial services and opportunity as well.
And being over there on the other side of the world, you sort of live in a little bit of a bubble here in regards to what's the local news and the local thematics and trends, etc. And also, I suppose not opening your eyes up to what where other fintech hubs, and being in London and Birmingham, as I mentioned, where there's probably a larger focus on fintech than here. Was there a big sort of eye-opening moment for you, or a big difference in terms of the sort of enthusiasm and attitude towards fintechs?
Yeah, so I've always been a big advocate of think global, act local, and what I mean by that is that I think it's unreasonable to think that the best ideas are going to come from the place that you come from necessarily, right? So what I really love about these types of structured programs is that you go out to a foreign market and you mix with people from all over the world, and you learn about what's worked and what hasn't worked. In terms of attitudes towards fintech, having moved back specifically from the UK to build a fintech in Australia, I'm always amazed by the energy and enthusiasm for the sector over there. The UK government's done an awesome job of creating incentives for investors to back fintechs. Contrastingly, look at the Australian market, and we have an investment incentive for early stage venture capital that is unclear and in most cases precludes investment in fintech. And so we have an undeveloped, maturing fintech ecosystem here that would benefit from similar policies. And participating in a program like that allows someone like myself to share those learnings with Austrade and the government and see what could be done to help inform policy here. But also helps me understand kind of what's led to the success of fintechs over there, and how do we replicate what's possible here? How do we apply learning? So looking at early stage examples of some of the early fintechs around how they achieved distribution partnerships and who they partnered with and how that worked. And just the access to talent and the knowledge from talent over there, where they see the opportunity to understand it, part of the challenge of being back in Australia for the last, coming up to kind of 4 years now for myself, there's been a big education journey around what is it that Parpera does and why is it valuable. And the best way to show that is to be live in market and starting to see those runs on the board. But there's a lead up to that, which is helping share the examples from overseas. And I think being embedded back in that ecosystem helped me contextualize a lot of the things I see locally here and better explain them locally as well. So immense benefits in taking part, not only if you're looking to go over there, but also if you're looking to apply the learnings back at home.
And then, working with Austrade and Investment New South Wales that you did mention before, how was your experience with them and the whole process in regards to potentially putting Australian fintech on the map?
They were really good to work with. It's really, actually, we locally, and you mentioned before around like being home and focused on the market locally, there's actually a lot of resource available to us as founders and as business operators in Australia to expand globally. I think getting to understand and accessing that can sometimes be challenging amongst all the different things that we have to focus on day to day. But being over there actually gave us access to the right people and be part of those right conversations, almost better access to people from Australia, but in the UK. And what I mean by that is that everyone's there for the same purpose. So it's very focused, the discussion. And so where you might try to get a meeting with someone here, actually, when you catch them over there, they're there for that reason, and you're able to embed yourself in that conversation. Yeah. Opportunities naturally occur. The follow-up from the delegation has been great. There's been support locally to progress our efforts in launching in Australia. And there's also been follow-up around how we may consider going globally when the time's right for that as well.
And mate, did you get over to Money 2020 in Amsterdam?
Of course. So that's the second part of the trip. So that was week 2. So it was a very intense schedule, but really rewarding. So Money 2020 in Amsterdam, one of the largest fintech events in the world. For anyone that's been, and for anyone who hasn't been, it's very similar to a Singapore FinTech Festival, and hopefully we'll have our own very own Intersect Festival become.
That's right, coming soon.
But the unique thing about Money 2020 is that it brings together people from all over the world, and people are there again focused on fintech. What's really interesting is that I've been going to these conferences now for a couple of years, and the conversation's only slightly changed. Look, we were at the Australia stand, which was great for Parpera and the other fintechs to get visibility. It was great for attracting investment interest, great for attracting brand awareness and just being part of the conversation. And it gives you a platform to really, for people to be aware of what you're doing and what you're trying to solve, but also allows us to understand how others in other markets are solving similar problems and to learn from each other. The other benefit of being there is just again just learning what the key trends and themes are in the market.
That would be something which I'd be keen on learning in regards to what's hot over there versus what's hot over here.
Yeah, and that's kind of my comment around the conversation hasn't changed that much, but at the same time, there's still so much to do. And so, yes, we are in a global economic, shall we call it a downturn?
Yep, quote unquote.
The consensus is, and this is not my personal view, but just from my learnings, that we're likely to see interest rates stabilize. So what does that mean for early 2024? Is the worst over? Are we going to potentially see an increase again in startup investment? Do we believe that cryptocurrencies are going to be the future of currencies? The consensus is probably not. It's central government digital CDBCs.
Yep.
That are likely to become the new digital currencies, and so that has some deep implications for people that believe in the next wave,
the application use, etc.
Yep. So I think that's really important. And again, they're not views that you can get by just sitting here in Australia. You need to go out and you can listen to podcasts, and you can. This is hopefully people get some value out of this one. But being there, being part of the conversation, being able to validate it in different places as well. So I was at Singapore FinTech Festival last year as well, and being able to contrast the views that you get in these different markets really helps you again validate what you're doing and ensure that you're on the right track. The other one was around sort of how neobanks have evolved over there and how they continue to evolve. Very strong consensus around like the sustainability of B2B focused propositions, which is great for us.
Yeah, for sure. Right in the wheelhouse.
The ability to derive revenue and how that diversifies over time. And I think it helps, like, again, bring part of the building on the story back at home and be able to draw on those examples when having discussions with investors or potential customers as well. So I got a lot of value out of it.
Mate, what an experience in a whirlwind couple of weeks, as you mentioned, but certainly the numbers of connections that you met, not only from the founders locally that you got to know over those weeks, but also the global connections. And one final question on the back of that, and you did touch on it briefly, is about potentially thinking global and executing global and potentially going overseas. Is that in the plans in the near term, or is it probably more in the longer term for your own business?
So Parpera was always built to be global from day one. The initial partnership that we did was with a partner that would have banking as a service capabilities in different markets. We've been fortunate to end up with a stronger partner, being Wise, which enables us to set up in Australia, but in any other market where Wise is. So by virtue of that might answer your question. But in the immediate term, Australia is our key focus in getting this right before we start actively pursuing other opportunities. But the key takeaway that I hope people get from this is that the opportunity in fintech is significant globally, and the downturn's only made it a larger opportunity for everyone because there's been a slowdown in activity. And take the UK for an example, which is a great market for companies from Australia to go to, but it's so similar. There's actually been a withdrawal of services from the market, with European companies retreating back to Europe post-Brexit, and now a lot of incentive encouragement to go and trade, and with the free trade agreement in place now as well, which will further support that. So if you are an Australian founder and you're trying to answer the investor's favorite question of, is Australia big enough? Well, you may want to consider adding on another market that is very similar, to give you another 5.5 million businesses plus another 70 million or so people to serve. So the opportunity to go global is significant, and we've got some really good support available from the Australian government to help us get there.
And on that note, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much, mate, for sharing your views on the recent fact-finding mission to the UK, as well as Money 2020 in Amsterdam. A wonderful opportunity for fintechs locally to participate in programs like this and to connect and to learn, and also to share their learnings to other members of the community. Really look forward to catching up in person, hopefully at Intersect, as you mentioned earlier, if not beforehand. And good luck and congratulations on the journey so far.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for listening to the FinTech Australia podcast. I'm your host, Chris Titley. The FinTech Australia podcast is a collaboration between FinTech Australia and Sub 11. For more information about membership options, news and the events coming up, jump on to the FinTech Australia website. Have a great day. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.